Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So as you can see, we got the Tacoma back today. The last time you saw it, we were putting the Old Man Emu lift on it with the BP51 shocks. Got it lifted up about 3 inches in the rear and a little less in the front. We adjusted the preload, brought it up a little bit more. But that back end is still riding a little bit higher. I will say now that he got the alignment and it's kind of been, everything's kind of settled in, it's a little bit taller in the front. I measured it out, it's about an inch taller than that last measurement that we took. But today we're going to be throwing some weight in the back and hopefully get that back end down riding where it should. But he went to iKamper and he got their, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I think it's supposed to be a play off of Recon, but it's Raconteur, whatever. Anyway, he got their new bed rack. He got the high profile, so it'll be riding flush with the top of the cab, I believe. But yeah, check this thing out. It's pretty cool. Should be a pretty simple install. Really nice quality stuff. It was packaged really well. There was no damage on any of the parts that I saw. So I'll get this thing pulled inside and get it out of the sun, and we'll get started. All right, so one thing I wanted to add here, I was kind of getting everything laid out, ready to go, and I was going through the hardware. There is a ton of hardware for this thing, but it's really cool because I think there's 76 different bolts there. They're all the same size. So you've only got that, and you've got one other size over here. Those bolts actually are what's gonna hold it into the truck, and that's what holds everything else together. So you don't normally see that. Usually you've got 10 different sizes of different bolts for this spot and that spot. It's super nice that everything is exactly the same. I can just put it in a big pile right there and I know exactly what I'm grabbing. I don't have to figure out what bolts I need or anything like that. So yeah, we'll get started. These are going in first, and then we'll put on our side rails to those. I'm gonna go ahead and start assembling in the back of the truck. That way I don't have to pick everything up and carry it to the back of the truck. We'll just hop in the back and we'll start assembling in the back. Okay, so again, everything's 13 millimeter for what we're doing right now. So you want to make sure that your rack, the big box is going to go to the rear, and then this actually bolts in to the factory rails that are on the side of your Tacoma. So it'll go somewhere about right in there, and then we'll bolt it in. I'll have to pull these out so that we can slide in the mounting hardware. But so just make sure that you got the big box on the back and that these drop plates are coming down on the inside of the bed. And that way while you're assembling in the back of the truck, you don't assemble it backwards. You don't have to pick the whole thing up and spin it around. So yeah, we're just gonna take this and we're gonna bolt it right inside of there. Okay, so it kind of came across a little bit of an alignment issue. It's going to be hard for you to see it, but once I put the bolt in on the front, this bolt hole at the back doesn't line up. I've got the four at the bottom all done. So I guess I'm going to have to try to get a little screwdriver and just carefully just pry it down a little bit. I think maybe from the welding or something. It might have warped just slightly. I mean, it's real close to lining up, but I can't get it in by hand. So anyway, I'll grab a screwdriver and we'll see if we can just kind of finesse it. So it didn't take much, but now we got it. All right, front one's on, and now we'll do the back. So I will say fitment is not the greatest on these bolts so far. I'm having issues getting a few of the rear ones started as well. It's all real close though, so I think it's doable, but I don't quite want to line up. Just the slightest prying with the screwdriver will get it all lined up though. Okay, so we got this side done. Got all the bolts in. There's a lot. So there's 8 on the front, and 6 on the front, 8 on the back. You can kind of see I got them all finger tight right now. But that side is assembled, so now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so the next thing in the instructions is to actually mount these handles. So obviously the instructions are a little bit old because these handles are welded in now. So no more need to bolt those in, they're welded in. So they've I've noticed a few things now that looks like they've kind of updated the instruction, or updated the product, and haven't quite got the instructions caught up. The next thing is to mount the side panels of these. However, since I'm working by myself, and I think it'll just be a little bit easier to manage, I'm gonna go ahead and mount them to the sides of the bed so that, first of all, so that they don't get scratched on anything, getting moved around and rubbed around. But also, I just think it'll make it easier since I'm by myself. I don't have anybody to kind of hold everything for me. I think it'll be easier if I just go ahead and mount them to the side of the bed, and then I'll start mounting everything to it. So next thing I'm gonna do is get the sides of the bed prepped. I'm sure probably most Tacoma guys are probably pretty familiar with these, but you got a little plastic end cap. You just push down on it. It'll slide out. There we go. And then loosen these off. There's got a spring tension on them. Loosen them off a pretty good amount. You can push down on them and slide straight out. So the way the bed rack mounts up is you've got 6 of these plates. They got 2 little threaded holes in the middle. So they are going to slide inside of here, and then that's what your bed rack will mount to. So that being said, there's 3 on each side, 6 in total. If you don't put these in between plates, you won't be able to use them anymore. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide one plate on, slide one of these on, slide a plate on, and then the other one, and then the last plate will go at the end. And then that way you've still got a little bit of adjustment in between plates to move these around in case you need to use them for tie downs. Okay, so now we're using the only other hardware in this kit, the bigger hardware, and that is what's going to hold your bed rack to the plates that we just installed. So make sure you switch to the bigger hardware. So now I'll try to finagle this up here and get a few bolts in, and I'm not gonna tighten anything down yet. Everything's just gonna be hand tight. That way I can move it, adjust it, and then we'll start installing the rest. Okay, something else to note: this little plastic end cap will not be able to go back on. So I've got the rack all the way forward to the front of the bed right now, and I can feel back here, and where the railing ends, that plate is actually sticking just past it, so you won't be able to put your plastic piece back in. Okay, so now I'm just going to leave everything hand tight. I am going to snug them down just a little bit more, but I'm definitely not going to tighten them all the way. Alright, so next up, according to the instructions, is the side panels. So we'll go ahead and get started with those. Looks like there's 8 bolts, 4 in the front, 4 in the rear, and we'll mount that to the side. So now we got the side mounted, and again it's just 8 bolts, 4 on the front, 4 on the rear. Alright, so now we can do that same thing to this other side. Okay, so we got the sides put on. Everything's still just finger tight, including these, the bolts that hold it into the rail. Everything's just finger tight right now. I'm just gonna leave it all finger tight until I get everything right where I want it, and then I'll start snugging everything down. So next is your 2 overhead racks, and just make a note there that one of them has the iKamper logo on the front, or well, it'll be the back. So that's the only one with the iKamper, and that'll be at the rear of the truck. The other one's just plain on both sides, and that'll go to the front of the truck against the cab. So now we'll go ahead and start with the one closest to the cab, and we'll get it mounted up. All right, and with this, there was a little note in there. So there's 6 bolts that go in the side. They added lock washers for those. These 2 on the top, or 2 on each side on the top, so 4 total. These are just the normal, just the bolts and the nut with a single washer on each side, just like we've been doing. So there's a total of 6 bolts on the sides, 2 on the top, and like I said, you'll have your bolt and washer, that'll go through. And then the inside you'll have a washer, a lock washer, and the nut. So we'll do that for all 6 of the ones on the sides for each side. Okay, that was a lot of hardware. So now we'll move to the back and do the last one, and then we'll start tightening everything up, which there's a specific order for that. So, but first, let's get that rear one on. Goodness gracious. All right, finally, all the hardware is in. Okay, so like I said, there's a specific order for tightening everything up. So we're gonna start down here on the side. So you actually start with these 4 bolts are first. You'll tighten those up first, then these front ones, and then the side. So we'll start in that order. Everything it looks like is torqued down to 18 Newton meters, which is about 13 and a quarter foot-pounds. So I don't have a torque wrench that goes that low. I'm just gonna snug them all up, but just don't over tighten them because that's all it needs is just about 13 foot-pounds. So, all right, like I said, we'll start here, and then here. We'll go ahead and get those done, and then we'll move to the top. Okay, so next we'll do the top 4 bolts on these. Same thing on the front. Okay, so I made one big mistake. It's very specific that the lock washer actually goes on the bolt side, so on the outside. Normally lock washers always go against the nut. These are nylon locking nuts, so it's kind of weird that they added a lock washer. It was kind of like a add-on to the instructions too. So obviously there was some reason why they did it, and there's some reason why they wanted it on the bolt side. So I went through and swapped all of them around, all 24 bolts up here. I got the lock washer on the bolt side, so it's bolt, lock washer, washer, and on the back side is just a washer and then the nylon lock nut. So got all those swapped up. We're gonna leave those loose. Next is actually going to be the bed mounts. Okay, so like I said, these bolts out here are still loose, and then we still got our bed rack bolts that are loose. So we're gonna leave these loose. This will be the last thing that we tighten up. We're gonna go ahead and move down to the bed rails. So on this, you should be able to adjust it slightly forward and back, but you want it says as far forward as possible. So ours is already as far forward as possible. So we're gonna go ahead and snug each one of these down to, again, the 18 Newton meters, which are about 13 foot-pounds. And then while I'm back here, I'm just gonna make sure that the little bed tie downs are just tightened down so they're not rattling and stuff on you. All right, and next up, and the last step will be to snug these down. And again, it's 18 Newton meters. All right, let's check it out. All right, and that's it. So we got the bed rack put on. Pretty simple, just a ton of hardware, ton of washers and bolts and everything else, but we got it on and mounted up. Looks pretty good. course, he's also going to be getting a new iKamper tent here before too long. Unfortunately, they were sold out. Otherwise, we'd probably have it today. But yeah, looks pretty good. Look better once you get some more stuff mounted on it. I would say all in all, the quality of it was very good. The ease of installation was definitely easy. I mean, just like I said, just kind of tedious with all the bolts and hardware. But and in the very beginning, I had a few minor issues with stuff lining up. But all it took was just a little screwdriver and just wiggling it around a little bit, and you got all the bolts in. So all in all, no issues today. Pretty smooth install, and I'm pretty happy with the outcome with the product. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. Again, I'm not sponsored by iKamper by any means. I actually didn't even buy this. He bought it because it's what he wanted, and I just did the install for y'all. So all right, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.